arguments are made on both sides. And whatever team you're on, you want your team to win and you believe that your team is right. And that's kind of been the way it is. I feel as if the politics of our world went from the chaos that happened outside of us, but none of us were a part of it. And then I think it started with like Bill Clinton, because I think the system went out to take him out. He was the first one. 9/11 came, and there's lots of, if you haven't gone down the conspiracy and actually do research on 9/11 and what took place and where it came from and how it happened, whether or not that was a staged event to enforce upon our community or onto our civilization, the Patriot Act. So they now control everything. They're overseeing everything, and we've been living in a controlled state. They're monitoring everything we do. I mean, even to get on your own internet these days, it's like I got to jump through 15 hoops. I can't get through. Like it literally is driving me crazy. Now I'm an old man, so it's maybe because of that, because I'm old. But I'm just thinking the young kids have no idea because this is their world. But it's like every time I turn around, there's another handcuff, there's another chain, there's another thing to constrict you. I go to my brother-in-law's to go visit him, and I don't know his address. Do you know the number and the name of the street? No. So I just show up, and of course, I have to put in my license so they know who I am, and they say, what's the name and address? Well, I know it's Trey So, but I don't know where he lives. Fortunately, they had me on the call list, but. Like all of these things that are taking place, you would call that a police state when that was taking place in Russia and in Germany during World War II, right? And none of that stuff was the case here. Well, the machine, the ultimate power, they want to be in control. They've been taking control, but we're now fighting back. And I say we're fighting back, not like we're doing it individually. Collectively, we're just saying, hey, this isn't right. This isn't working for us. Like everything is messed up. And the idea was, let's get a political issue, whatever it is, and let's make every American decide. So you have to take a side. And pretty soon people are they're so exhausted. They're so exhausted even trying to take sides because we can't figure any of this stuff out. Instead, they get you all hyped up. Get them all hyped up. Get everybody freaking out about whatever it is, right? Whether it's Trump or it's the poison in our food or it's the vaccinations or it's World War III or it's, anti-Semites. All of this stuff, it's just constantly pumped at us. Those external outputs of anger or frustration or irritation, it's because they've lost their mind. They've lost, they don't know where to go. And so they're terrified or they're angry or they decide however they look at their world and they place blame on whatever the blame is, right?
Right.
And, and depending on who you are talking to, the blame is Donald Trump, or the blame is the Democratic National Committee, or the blame is on Biden, or the blame is on Israel, or the blame is on China, or the blame is on Russia, or the blame is on Americans, or the blame is on religious fanatics. Yeah. Like everyone's got a blame, and in the past, because we didn't have the internet to pull us together into pools of ideological communities, we had our physical community that we interacted with. And you're going to act differently when you're physically in front of someone and you're physically interacting with somebody than you are behind the safety of the anonymity of a camera, where you can go out front and you can say whatever you want and you can make whatever claims that you want, and you want to stir the water yourself. That's the stuff that I just say, try to get above that so you can watch it all. And by the way, if you have a favorite team, you can watch your favorite team, root for your favorite team intellectually. You know what I'm saying? You can watch it all unfold, and that's kind of what we do. But in my case, I don't hold out my 5D peace of mind and my 5D perception to the outcome that I perceive I want to have happen in my little egoic personality called John Weber, who lives in this space. But in a higher level, as my awareness, I'm watching it, right? I'm watching it all happen. I can see what John wants, and so I can enjoy that. But on the same token, if it goes the other way, my awareness is going to go to John. He's going to say, hey, we need to readjust yourself and come over here and see it differently. So in the meantime, try to see every angle and don't get yourself too emotionally caught up in whatever's happening, just being observant of it and then allowing it to happen. But I feel as if it's going to get more and more chaotic, because those who are still holding on and they're still fighting their battles, as the rest of us start to let go. In fact, we float up to 5D. We float up to 5D. All of these people are no longer going to be engaged. And those who are left fighting are going to become more and more and more extreme. And that, I think, is what's going to happen when Trump starts going in and starts making cuts, starts taking away the bloodstream of all of these crony capitalists who have been on the system. And I would say most people are in it. They don't even realize that they're in it. They just have a job, and they have a job and a career, and they believe their political points of view because they've been fighting for them their whole lives. Well, that whole system is so corrupt, and when it comes down, all they're going to have left is to be angry, and all they're going to have left is to scream and yell.
Sure.
Right? But as soon as they do, finally, they're going to be forced to let go, and once they do, it's going to be like, oh, wow. All of a sudden, they're going to find some peace. That it's a more violent community than it was when we were in school, because when I was in school, you couldn't even go in certain sections of the bleachers. Because one section was for the Italian group, one section was for the Irish group, one section was for the black group. You know what I mean? And it was like, you didn't go over there. And you didn't cross date, and you didn't do any of those things. And while, yes, we didn't have guns to do mass shootings, we definitely had tribal vendettas that we potentially were fighting for.
Social groups.
And I felt that there were a lot more fights taking place.
Oh, no.
I grew up in the city, so we obviously must have had a little different words. But I feel as if the kids today are almost so docile. Now, they do on occasion. I can see a few of them be, and by the way, maybe a lot of them are on medication too to make them this way. But I feel as if these kids today, they don't want any toxic masculinity. They don't want any arguments. They don't want anyone to be offended. They want everyone to be at peace. And I feel as if that's kind of a general attitude that's taking place. And I do feel as if that's where they're going to go. And then on the idea of bringing this into the educational system is controlled by the teachers union. They have an agenda, and if you don't know what it is, you should learn that. I don't know what the agenda is, but I know what people on both sides say. And if you think that girls who want to be boys should be able to have their bodies changed when they're a teenager, well, that's a point of view. I don't happen to share that personally, but there are millions of Americans who do. And so that's one of those insanity things that there's not one thing I can do except get sick about it if I think about it. But those people are going to do what they're going to do, and none of that is necessarily going to affect me. But I feel as if the ability to be able to make any headway into the teachers, you have to get into the teachers' unions. And one of the things that Trump proposed is taking the teachers' union out of Washington. Instead of making it a federal agency, put it into each individual state so we can have our oversight as far as what we want to have happen nationally, the influence that we want, as a federal government. But that each state then can move forward with whatever it is that they want to teach or whatever it is that they want to do because they feel it's better for their own community. Maybe that opens up a little bit wider of a perspective because change will allow it to be fit in there. So the thing I was going to say is so you say when that truck goes through, right, and then they try to boil it down to it was his mother's fault or it was his doctor's fault or it was his upbringing, he was sexually assaulted. And to me, that's all of that stuff is the 3D stickiness that we get into arguments about. All of a sudden, instead of, this has already happened, there's not a thing we can do, and let's put our energies into loving one another and taking care of one another and making sure that everyone gets accommodated, and there's lots of love and support built around this. Instead, it becomes another hostility. And where we try to assign blame, and everyone that's assigning blame is assigning blame from their perch looking in at the world. And so we all have different perches, and that's what creates this unbelievable amount of chaos because we're all trying to argue for our own point of view. Just zoom up and watch it and you can see it. And you realize that the immigration crisis in America, if you call it that, there are different points of view. And if you happen to grow up, and I have a friend who's, from Ecuador, and he came to tears telling me how amazing, how intense it is for these kids to want to get out of their communities and want to be able to come to the opportunities for America. And obviously, so because he resonates with them from his perch, he feels as if there should be a lot more leeway or a lot more liberal attitudes about letting people over the border, right? But then again, you could be someone who lives on the border whose daughter was raped by some guy who came over the border, and it may not have even been somebody. Maybe it's just assigned that way, and that was the narrative that we bought, right? And all of a sudden, you hate them all, you want to kill them all. And those are two different perches. And there's 15, there's the perch of Donald Trump, and there's the perch of Joe Biden and the Republican Party, blah, blah, blah. And the 5D is to just rise above it all and look at it all. And let's just talk about it from up here. Let's talk about it, looking at the game like we're watching the game unfold. We're not in the game. If you're down here in the game, you don't want to, don't talk to me. What are you talking about? Oh, stop talking politics. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear that. That's those stuck in the game. They're still wrestling for power. They're wrestling to have their information carried or to squelch something else. Rise above it and watch it all. Laugh at it all. Find the way to look at it and say it's almost comical. Even though it's sad, it's comical because people, they don't even see how literally insane they are. They are truly like disconnected from reality,
right?
And
well, you've made a statement in some of the past podcasts we've had that you view or you see the younger people migrating towards a 5D mentality, and is that correct? You sort of said that. What age group are you specifically referring to? 20 to 30?
No. So what I'm going to
say, high school.
So what I was saying is, the 5D is basically, if you get into the science of it, it has to do with your DNA and what's light within your DNA. And we get fed our DNA by the light that we live in. The sun, if we're outside, we get healthy. If we're eating good food and we're eating the right diet and we're not stuck in a toxic pool of connected to an internet device 24/7 or connected to a political argument 24/7, and we live in that space. The next generation kids are kind of, they're already thinking bigger than that. And they have a hard time even like something that's going to sound controversial, but like the difference between seeing a guy who who tortures people, a person who sexually assaults people, right? Or a person who rapes people or whatever. And these are all just ugly and dark scenarios. And they view our world as just ugly, dark scenarios. Like there is no good in Trump people or in BLM. And I'll just say, because they're opposites, right? They don't see a coherent, healthy mindset anywhere. They see the whole system as completely, utterly insane. And truly, it is insane, by the way. We're insane. We are collectively in a psychosis that we are truly not connected to what is taking place as a collective, but where that is breaking up. Like we're starting to come to our senses, and more people are saying enough already, because in fact they are rising up. And the next gen kids, and I'm talking about kids who are, in the teenagers, kids who are being born right now in their early 20s and 30s. But again, these are just perspectives. It doesn't make them true. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. But if you look into the 5D, and you can just go and look for 5D consciousness on YouTube or Google it and ask questions about it. There's community groups. Go to my Facebook page. I share this stuff all the time. Or let's talk. As you guys know, I love to talk. The chaos is going to continue for those who are not going to just let go and come to 5D. The older folks, where you and I are, we're kind of pretty well set in our ways, and you're a pretty open-minded guy, and obviously, that's a rarity for our group. Most of us, we know who we are, and you know the person you're talking to, and you can't even get them to look at something else. If you even make a percentage, they'll just automatically resist it. They'll say, "Oh, that's not true. Oh, that's false information. Oh, no, that's not what the evidence suggests." And you say, "Okay, well, did you ever read the other side's point of view?" Well, no, it's all. Why would I read that? It's propaganda. Okay.
Yeah.
But I do feel as if I spend a lot of time with the younger, millennials. I want to see where they're thinking us to. Where are they going to? What are the new plans coming out? AI is going to play a major role. In fact, there was just a thing come out just recently where somebody has actually gone and taken all the government spending, which is public information, and they got access to that data, and they've put it into an AI system or into a database that they can now make that information available. And what if we took every time there was any information associated with government, because government is we the people, so there's nothing private in government. It actually belongs to us, right? So we take all that data, we put all that data into a computer, and we say, well, we need to be careful about whatever they call it, methods and our means and methods or whatever that they can't compromise. Well, the AI isn't going to necessarily look at means. All they're going to look at is outcomes and where it came from, right? We're not going to assign blame. We're just going to say, like, there are billions of dollars being funneled back into the United States, funding our own drone systems, by the way. This is what I read and see. I'm not saying this is true because I don't have any evidence other than the same propaganda I read from both sides. But that a lot of that money that's supposedly going there comes back to feed the industrial military complex that we have in America. We are a war-making country, and we provide, because we're NATO, we literally provide security for the whole nation, and we are the policemen of the world. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, what accountability is there? Because we also carry a lot of power, and as police and those who are, if you're in this high-speed chase, and you get the adrenaline going, and that gets you really pumped and jacked, and maybe that's because you're a criminal, Well, on the same token, if you're a police officer, at least you get that same adrenaline, but you're on the right side. You're on that just side, although that's being challenged now too. So these are the types of things that are going to continue to happen. But I just think we're gonna move beyond it. I just think it's coming to an end, and it's going to be interesting to see how Trump actually goes. If this stuff is going to continue, or if he's going to try to go after his own things and engage in the same lawfare that they did against him. And of course, all those on the right are going to say, of course, because we need to have justice, and we need to have justice, and we need to have accountability. And I don't disagree with that either. As John Weber on the ground, I see that point of view. But I also can say, how realistic is that? It's kind of like peace. Peace is going to have to come at a higher cost than a winner and a loser, because a winner and a loser never brings peace. It brings peace to the victor for a short time, and all the losers plot and plan until they can have their overthrow. And oh, by the way, there was just another overthrow, right? Trump's back. Trump won in 2016, lost in 2020. Now he's back again, and this stuff goes back and forth. The capacity for us to even process data, and they have a scale of, I don't know, it's like 1 to 20 or something like that. But basically, those who reach a level 9, a level 10, right, represent almost half the country. When you start getting up into the ability to be able to comprehend data, calculate data, and this includes things like I can think linear, I can think this way, I can see the consequences of things going this way, I can see the consequences of things going that way. Some people, they can only see the consequences at this level. I'm right and you're wrong. I win, you lose. That's the only thing they know, and that's the very base. It requires a significant amount of brain processing power, and there aren't many people that can do it. And the people who are at that level is probably about 7% of society. 7% of society builds everything. They design everything. They're the only people who actually have the intellectual capacity to build something. Now we can get the intellectual capacity to service things that have already been built. We can recreate things that have already been built, but the actual intelligence that pulls these different concepts together out of the patterns of reality and saying we need to have energy source and mechanics and machines and tires, like just the intellect to be able to diagram an automobile, never mind create one. But we're so far beyond automobiles. I mean, we get so much stuff. And how much of the stuff do we not even know that we have access to? That's the very, 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 very small percentage of humanity. And in our community, all I look for, because I don't think that you and I are up there at all. Like when I'm saying like that level, I'm saying in order to have a 5D perception, you have to know everybody. So if you I happen to be blessed or cursed, I guess you could say, my family's very liberal from Boston, that we grew up there, and Boston is an amazing place. And Boston strong, I love it. And I also know what it's like to be a liberal and to believe in that cause and wanting to help the underdog. And that's kind of the purpose, in making sure that our food is safe and all those things that take place. Then I moved down here and I'm like a conservative in Lee County. And all of a sudden I'm realizing, what it's like to be proud to be an American and feeling as if the America that I knew is now going away. And we're going into insanity space. Without being able to see both sides, you can't really grasp a higher point of view because you just feel as if you're right and they're wrong. So the more points of view that we can assimilate into our own conscious thoughts, the more civil we become because we see more information. And I feel as if, and the idea of, by the way, this book, The Metamodernity, we as a civilization, we're kind of moving like this. So the bottom is moving up. What moves the people at the bottom? When the smarter people above them, they make their points, it gets fed back down the food chain. And then we at the bottom say, oh, this is where we're going. Oh, okay. And we vibrate there. We're still at the bottom fighting against whatever the opposite is per se, but it's kind of like there's a collective rising within the consciousness of humanity. And that's 5D consciousness. And that's what it is. It's just knowing more. And the fact that we can get these additional thoughts flowing and then take those additional thoughts and actually put them into a supercomputer to actually formulate and dissect data and collate data and be able to put it all together and say, hey guys, look at this as a solution. Oh my God, we can't have a computer doing that. Well, clearly we can't do it. We've been trying to do it since the birth of time. And it kind of feels as if, where are we now? Is this something that's going to manifest into something bigger or better? I don't know. Go to church and just say, I don't need to worry about any of these things.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ is coming and Armageddon is around the corner. And, we're in the last days, critical times, hard to deal with will be here. And here we are. And as it starts, the great tribulation since the world has started is going to happen. And when it happens, you just stand still and watch it happen. And that's a healthy mindset if that's your mindset. Or you can say the whole world is crashing and it's going to kill me, and you can live in that space for the next 20 years. And that's 5D. We get the choice of saying, where do I want to live? Where do I vibrate healthy? So you ask the question, who am I? Who am I? Think about yourself and go inside of yourself and say, what type of person am I? Really, what type of person am I? And then ask, what would other people think about me? If I asked them to say, what type of person am I? What would they have to say? That's an interesting thought. Well, I don't want to consider that because it'll get me angry or because it'll make me sad. Okay, that's all true. But the idea is, all of those thoughts are there. And if we examine ourselves and we look inside of our own self, this is the spiritual quest, by the way, ask the question, who am I? Then you ask the question, do I like who I am? Do I love who I am? Do I love who I am? All of me. Now, we all know who we are because we've got our good side and our dark side, and most people don't know our dark side. We kind of keep those hidden. But we know our dark side on our own, and so we need to look into our own selves and saying, do I love me? And if I don't love me, if there's something about me that I'm not happy with, if there's something about the way I interact or I don't interact or whatever, that's a 5D perception that you look at yourself and you say, okay, I don't like this about me. Okay, well, what happens if you don't like a pair of clothes that you're wearing? What happens if you don't like your outfit? You take it off and you put on a new outfit. So if there's something about you that you don't like, find out how to fix it. Find out how to get a better costume and work on yourself. Work on me from within. Work on my own ability to think, my own ability to be friendly and nice and loving and kind and considerate, right? How can I help make the world a better place? And act from that. I call that 5D. I call that spirituality. And you can be a religious person, you can be a coach, you can be a motivational speaker just because you love people. Let's just love one another. And to me, getting to that space, oh my God, Wary is such a freaking kook. Who the hell wants to work on love? Well, I will tell you, since the birth of time, love has been the most powerful tool at maneuvering humanity.
Yeah.
In fact, way more than any violence or hatred. And usually the violence and hatred is overthrown by love.